Hello, this is Dominic from the Jack and Dom Radio Show, a weekly sports radio program, and although we broadcast on professional hardware, we do record our show mostly on my laptop, and sometimes I don't press record right when we start. Some shows will start right in the middle of a topic. Regardless, this show is a work of love and passion for sports with raw and transparent opinions between the two of us. So I hope you all enjoy. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a super long, or at least what it feels like, a super long break.
I beg to differ.
Well, I mean, it's just getting out of the routine. Like, I was playing video games because I had nothing to do, so I was just playing video games till like 4 a.m.
Oh.
And then waking up at like 1 p.m.
As you should. I played my fair share, but break felt way shorter than it would be, and both of us have had rough weeks, so I think if you could snap your finger and go back a week or two and get to relive break again, maybe have a different outcome in the Lions game, I think we'd all be better for it. So
I thought the phone's ringing, and I thought the phone was on silent. Usually the phone's on silent, but
just leave it.
I'm not gonna believe it anyway.
It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. TikTok was shut down for a hot minute, and then I was back. Now you can't find it on the App Store. So, like, it's still off the App Store.
Interesting. But existing users can get to it?
Existing users can still get to it. So, if you deleted the app right when it shut down, you can't get it back.
Interesting.
Which sucks for a few people. I left on mine, but I, as a TikTok refugee, have already moved to RedNote. And apparently, the app itself, let me pull up the screenshot here. So, you know how... if you go to China, or if you're Chinese and you come here, I keep losing my train of thought. Excuse me.
I just think it's interesting though how much like sports commentary and like sportscasters have already started shifting over from TikTok to Instagram and RedNote and other options, like the plethora of sports commentary that I've seen there and also on X. It's just interesting.
So if you migrate from one country to another, because the languages are so fundamentally different, you get like a Chinese name or you get like an English name.
Right.
So the app apparently is like, oh, here's some Chinese name suggestions for you. And it's so like they're like the first few are basically like the direct phonetic translation of my name in Chinese, and then there's like different ones, like meaning this one means bright and warm, like the morning sun, and
interesting,
and all these other things. So it's interesting. A lot of nice people on there, already seeing different recipes.
Yeah, I'm not on RedNote, but I know there's a lot of new sports.
Yeah, ESPN's already on there.
Right, ESPN and
CBS already on there.
So it's really interesting to see. I like when sports content is diversified across platforms. Whether it's on RedNote, Instagram, TikTok if it comes back, Snapchat. Like, it's nice to have different mediums and different like video lengths and different commentaries. It's always fun to see. Okay, though. I know you made an NMU sports tier list.
Yes.
For the first half of this year.
The first half of this year.
I think we mostly did, agree on it, but I'm sure, as per usual, you and I will find something to disagree about.
So this was so I made my tier list on January 2nd. So basically, right
the new year.
Right in the new year.
Me, I think I have a copy of it.
So I posted this on Yik Yak a while ago. Like, I posted on all of the social medias, and someone was arguing with me. They were suspecting I was on the softball team because I put softball team as S tier because they went 12-2 and won regionals.
I would say okay.
And they still have a seat.
Yes, correct. I would put them in A tier.
Why would you put them A tier?
I think you got to be a really special team to be an S tier. My S tier, I think, is a lot.
They won postseason games, though.
That is true.
And
I respect it. I just really don't put anybody in the S tier unless they like are a really special team.
Yeah. Women's soccer
again, is A tier. Absolutely right. Both basketball teams A tier.
B tier.
I think men's, especially right now, should certainly be B tier. That Tech blowout was after the new year, right?
Yes. So even this is a snapshot in time.
Even then,
it has changed. I would move some of the stuff around now.
Even then, I still would have put them in B tier. But again, I'm much more exclusive with my upper level tiers than you are.
But at the time,
yes,
it made sense to put them A tier.
Volleyball B tier, they had a pretty good season, just short of postseason. Track and field B tier, women's, I can't tell what that is. Swim and dive, B tier. They've been pretty solid.
Club soccer. Did
club
fairly
soccer,
well.
I would put in B tier.
Club soccer did fairly well.
Club hockey teams, I would actually put in B tier.
Okay, because at the time they were
they were okay.
They were in the middle in C tier.
The reason I would put
C plus.
The reason I would have put them in B tier is because I think
they did a little better.
Yeah,
I think they won a game or two since then.
When I put them in my tiers, I also think about where they are now and also where they are expected to be. Especially with the club hockey teams, we know they're really, really good
relative to their competition.
Right, yes. I'm willing to put them in a little bit of a higher tier.
Okay.
Men's soccer, I got no problem with. Men's swim and dive. What's the one after that?
Golf. Men's golf.
Yeah, they were okay. What's the one after?
Wrestling.
Wrestling, I would actually put higher. Our wrestling program is pretty good. I would say B or even A.
Okay.
Our wrestling program is quite good, and they've done very good in their various regionals. So I would actually put that in A tier. That's one of the few.
Okay.
What's the one that looks like an infinity sign?
CC?
Oh, is that cross country?
Cross country.
You just put it in green, so it threw me off.
I know. Well, that's the Michigan green. So that's why it's that.
Cross country and C. Yeah, that's fair. Women's club soccer, I don't know enough about to really comment on that. They must not have.
They lost most of their games.
To put them in D tier. Then women's golf, you also put in D tier, so they must have not a good season. Again, I don't know much about them. NLD and F tier, not a.
The NLD ice cream machine.
Oh,
you see the ice cream?
Oh no, that's dead on arrival.
No, it worked. It worked some of the time.
Hockey, F tier.
At the time,
the way they're playing right now, if they keep it up.
They're D. I would put them D- now because they won. They won a few games.
If they keep it up, they can keep moving up the tiers. I'd say football team, also F tier.
Is there a particular subject you want to just talk about for the next minute while I take this call here first?
So you want to just?
I'm sorry.
Just mute us for a minute. Say we'll be right back.
I can't.
I can keep touching on the tier list if you want. Obviously,
the
men's club basketball team didn't quite turn out the way we wanted it to. It was a little bit disappointing. I know Dom, being the one that was really trying to be behind that, was really disappointed by the outcome. And then we weren't able to find win and loss records for club rugby teams or club volleyball teams.
Yes.
But I think a really solid tier list for the first half of this year. Well done by you. Really, really well done. I think I agree with most of what you did in there. But speaking of, we were kind of touching on hockey there. They're 3-1 in 2025, which after being, I think it was 1-18-1 in 2024, is certainly a vast improvement. And like I was telling you a lot last semester when we were kind of comparing the hockey and football team, this is something that I saw coming. I thought, they were going to kind of start going up. And I don't think, we're going to miraculously go on a run and win the tournament or end with a winning record or anything insane like that. But I do think that starting the new year 3-1, beating a team that's as good as Mankato. We've got Tech coming up this Friday and Saturday, which I got tickets to go to the Tech game up in Houghton. So I'm excited for that. If you perform good against Tech and you continue to just have a solid 2025, even a 500 or just barely under 500 record, would be good. And, it's one of those things where obviously this program had to pretty much restart from the ground up. A lot of freshmen, a lot of transfers that really hadn't had a lot of playing time at their previous schools. And so I think it took a little bit of time for these players to get the experience they needed and for them to gel and to mesh a little bit and to kind of have that team synergy that you need, especially in a sport like hockey where it's all about communication and skilled passing and shooting. And it takes a lot of team synergy. even more than I think a lot of other sports do. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed by their start to 2025, and I'm cautiously optimistic. I know, crazy. I'm actually optimistic about something.
Yeah,
but
it's very rare that you're optimistic
I'm excited
about
for
anything.
them, and I'm pretty excited for the basketball teams. They've had a decent start to the season.
Although we did get blown out by Michigan Tech, which, I mean, it seems more obvious now. They are better than we originally anticipated.
They seem really good, and I think they're going to be one of the favorites to win the GLIAC.
Yep. I mean, considering they beat Division I Green Bay, you just talked about that, right? Because I was okay.
Not really.
I want to put off a side note here. I'm going to create for this show, because it seems like there are people who want to participate in the discussions that we have, because we've been doing this for, I think, long enough. We now are starting to accumulate an audience. I'm going to create a social media account so that people can actually comment in and stuff like that. Because I was trying to answer a phone. I could barely hear what he's saying. And I'm like, I think we got to find a solution for this. Just a side note there. But yeah, don't call in. I can't put you in on the show. There's no button for me to press. So
we can't take live in call-ins like it's
we're not.
We're happy if you have commentary that you want to add. We'll make something.
Well, we're gonna make like social media accounts.
Right.
Probably on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, things like that. So we can actually have people contribute in. That's something I should have done a long time ago, to be honest. That's my fault.
I'm also, I'm really excited by the basketball team too. I think one interesting thing we can talk about quickly, just because, the Michigan teams aren't really involved in this. But I'm curious your thoughts on the 12-team playoff and how that played out. Of course, I, as a Michigan fan, am really frustrated that it's Notre Dame against Ohio State. I mean,
the two teams you hate the most.
I don't even care about Notre Dame, because
the two teams that Michigan fans generally hate the most.
I don't really hate Notre Dame because we beat them almost every time we play them. So, at least in the recent era, other than excluding the years under like Rich Rod, where Michigan was barely a functioning football program. But like when Michigan's been good and they've been good, we've beat them several times under Jim Harbaugh and some of our previous coaches. So I'm heavily rooting for Notre Dame, but I will not be tuning into that. I will also probably not be tuning into the Super Bowl, but we'll get to that. I think the 12-team playoff was interesting, but I think
I'll tune into the Super Bowl. I'll tune into the national championship, which is, by the way, tonight.
Crazy, I know. I don't really know if I'm going to tune into either, because I think it's pretty much inevitable that Mahomes is going to get a three-peat, but we'll cover that.
The Bills can stop him.
Well, we'll get to the NFL, I swear. When it comes to the 12-team college football playoff, and I'm not saying this because the two teams I don't like made it. I would have said the same thing if it was any two other teams. I would have said the same thing.
Because Ohio State didn't win their conference, and Notre Dame's not in a conference, then they should be.
I think, Ohio State would be one of the first national champions to not win a conference. Notre Dame is kind of weird because they're not in a conference. Like, do you say they didn't win?
Only in football. They are in like every other sport.
Most of them, I thought there was one or two other ones where they weren't. Like
in hockey, they're in
basketball?
No, they're in the ACC.
They are? Okay.
They're in the ACC, and everything else. In hockey, they're in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, okay, you get a lot more revenue as a football team when you're an independent. So there is that.
I guess so.
Because you don't have to revenue share with the Big Ten or any other entity.
That's true.
There's some complicated legal reasons for why Notre Dame is independent. But
tradition.
I think the problem with this system, and I know a lot of people that I've kind of had many debates with on the internet will disagree with this. Although I got a lot of traction when I posted this on Instagram a couple weeks ago. For whatever reason, I think the first round buys are a problem.
Okay.
Because the first round buy teams did not look good.
All of them lost, didn't they?
Yes. I think so. No. Did they?
Let me take a quick look here.
I think they did.
I wish there was just a picture.
Because I think it was 5, 6, 7, and 8 that went to the second round, right?
Yeah.
because Texas was the 5 seed that beat Arizona State, one of the most controversial endings you'll ever see. By the way, kudos to Arizona State for even making it this far. They were projected, I think, to have 2 or 3 wins this year. It ended up with nearly winning a playoff game. So Texas, the 5 seed, won that. I believe Notre Dame, the 7 seed, beat Georgia pretty handedly. Ohio State beat Oregon, so that was the 8 seed over the 1 seed. And then
I was not prepared for this.
That leaves Penn State beating the 3 seed, which would have been, Boise. So, yeah, every team in the first round bye lost.
Which, that shouldn't be the case. Right.
I think, don't get me wrong, I think one thing they got to do is make it so that teams that get a first round bye are either
Texas
the top
beat Arizona
4,
State, Oregon lost, Boise lost, Georgia lost.
I think either you got to get by so the top 4 teams, like the actual top 4, like whether that's 2 SEC, 2 Big Ten, 3 Big Ten, 1 SEC, a Big Ten, an SEC, an ACC, and a Big 12, like whatever it is. Either you give it to the top
Pac-12,
4 teams.
Pac-12's coming back.
The Pac-2, which will soon be what? The Pac-8, the Pac-10, I don't know.
Pac-7 or Pac-8, but 7 football teams.
So
Gonzaga is going to be their non-football school, although the NCAA wants a minimum of 8 football schools.
So we'll see there. Maybe you do get a Pac-8 team, but I don't even know if they're going to be considered a power conference anymore.
I don't know.
I don't think they will. But either you pick the top 4 teams, regardless of if they won the conference, or if you're going to do by conference winners, it's going to have to be the top 4 conferences.
Yeah.
Because Boise just got steamrolled by Penn State. And, don't get me wrong, Texas didn't play well in their first round game either against Arizona State. They fully deserved and should have lost that game, in my opinion, with some questionable refereeing calls. But I think you've got to keep it to Power 4 schools plus Notre Dame, because I just don't think, even if a group of, what would it be, group of 6 now, if you count the Pac-12, it's no longer group of 5, I guess.
It's group of 3, or group of 4. Power 4.
Power 4 and it'd be group of 6 now.
Yeah.
So a group of 6 team, it's weird saying that. It doesn't taste right in my mouth.
No, it doesn't.
A group of 6 team, I think even if you run the table, it's tough to justify them getting a top seed.
So the ACC, Big Ten, SEC, well, it doesn't.
I think 12? It should just be the top 4 teams in general.
Okay.
I don't think it should be based on conference winners.
But if you're a conference winner,
most of the time,
at least not get the bye, but be somewhere.
Yes, but what's interesting to me is the reason I don't want to do just the top 4 conference championship. Well, that's what they do. It's a top 4 conference champions.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do just conference champions because Clemson was a conference championship, but literally barely made it in because, they weren't good in the regular season. Neither was SMU. And honestly, you could say that SMU didn't even deserve to be in. Neither here nor there. But point being, the bye system, I don't know what about it. Maybe those teams were all fraudulent. I don't know. I think Boise State certainly was. Arizona State got screwed by refereeing. Georgia's QB went down instantly. And Ohio State, I think, had some extra fire. But I still think something was up with those buys. I don't know. But I think it put a team at a disadvantage to have not played the previous week, if that makes sense. Because, the previous week, right, you have the lower seeds that have played and won a playoff game. They're extra motivated. They've just played. They know what worked, what didn't. And then you've got another team that hasn't played. They're kind of rusty. It's been, what would it have been, 4 weeks since the conference championship, right? So an elongated period of time off, I think, makes it more difficult. And I agree with a lot of people that are saying you could move up the CFB games to a little bit earlier in the year.
Would an 8-team playoff, would that...
That will never happen just because of monetary reasons. Okay. I don't mind the 12.
But would that have been better... with what you're talking about?
It's possible, but I think a better solution would be you move all the games up in the timeline. I think you could do either the semifinals or the championship, not on January freaking 20th. That just feels wrong. But on January 1st. If you want to make the Rose Bowl a semifinal game, which I think it should be, I think it should be the Rose Bowl and then probably the Orange Bowl. I feel like Sugar and Fiesta, I think, were the other two major bowls. Cotton, yeah. Those ones I feel like are not as important. I think Rose and Orange should be your...
Cotton is still a big... That's a big time bowl. Fiesta.
Rose and Orange have been historically like the two really famous ones, especially Rose.
Well, especially Rose Bowl. It's called the granddaddy of them all for a reason.
But I think...
Although I think they stopped using that.
Yeah, they did.
For a while.
I think you have two options, really. But I think the smart thing to do is you move... And this is a hypothetical that will likely never happen. But I think if you're CFB, it is a solution. I think it's a good one. So you move up all the dates of the games by a week or two, so that the semifinals are played on New Year's and then the final is the week after. Like it used to. I think that's actually how it was in the 14 playoff. Could be wrong. But you move everything up. Then I would do the Orange Bowl and, Fiesta, Cotton, pick your favorite, second, third favorite New Year's Six Bowl as those semifinal games. And then I would actually put the CFB final in the Rose Bowl Stadium. You can call it the Rose Bowl, you can call it the CFB final, but it preserves a legacy, I think, of that iconic stadium.
Is the national championship in a different location every year?
Yes. And I'm not necessarily against that. You could make the Rose Bowl a semifinal game, but I think preserving the legacy of the Rose Bowl is really important. And I think moving the dates up of these games makes it so that you don't have a month in between playing your CFP playoff game from your first round bye and your conference championship. So you have a little less time of just kind of being restless and, not knowing who you're going to play. And you move up the games so college football ends a little bit earlier in the year. You're not waiting for forever for the playoff to come around, right? Mm-hmm. You've still got time, Christmas, and, the weeks prior to that for all the other kind of minor bowl games. But I think by moving up the schedule a little bit, you kind of, instead of having to make teams wait 4 weeks, you kind of fix that issue. But we'll see. I think Ohio State blows out Notre Dame tonight, and Michigan fans like myself are not going to be happy. But I just think, as a college football fan, I like the 12-team playoff, but I think, there's some changes that could be made to create less disadvantages. At least it seems like maybe they were the inferior teams, but it seemed like the teams with first-round byes were at significant disadvantages. So just a thought. I think moving the schedule around would be beneficial for college football. And I also think moving the transfer portal until after bowl games is an absolute must, and I think that will happen. I think the schedule moving around won't, but I think certainly moving the transfer portal until after bowl games is really important because you avoid players opting out and transferring in the middle. Mm-hmm. There's been players that have literally transferred in the middle of bowl games.
Yeah.
I think you have to find a way to sort of...
Oh, yeah. There were players who straight up just be like, I'm going to the draft in halftime.
Right. That's
there's got to be
you got to put the portal after that.
Yes.
Fine. You don't have to play. You want to opt out of the game? Great. I don't love opting out of the game.
As a fan, though.
I really don't like it as a fan, but fine. You want to opt out of the game?
I wouldn't like it as a coach.
I wouldn't either. But, since the dawn of time, except for in CFB games, this has been happening for decades. So fine. You want to opt out of the game? Fine. But you're going to be there with your team, cheering on your teammates, being there for your players and your coaches. Even if you are going to announce you're leaving the next day or the next week, even if you aren't getting the playing time you want, even if you're going to go to the draft, opt out, great, but I don't think they should be allowed to transfer and start talking to other schools until after that period is over. You committed to a team, you're more than welcome to leave. Coaches leave too, that's fine, but I don't think leaving in the middle of a bowl game, before a bowl game, I don't like that. And I think that's something that, when college football has their yearly meetings, I don't know when they are, probably in the next couple of months, you'll see that get addressed.
Okay.
That's kind of a side tangent of mine, but I do think there's got to be some change.
So here's the interesting thing that I was told a few days ago with college football championships. For the NAIA, Division III, Division II, and FCS,
right?
The champions of all of those leagues and divisions were all in the Midwest.
I saw that, and I think it's really cool because
Ferris State.
And
then
local team,
Mount Union, which is in.
And then you had North Dakota
Illinois.
State too, I think, right?
North Dakota State won the FCS.
Yeah, so that
a school called Grandview in Iowa.
I saw that. That's really cool to me because
and now the FBS. It will also work for the FBS as well because Notre Dame and Ohio State are both in the Midwest. No Southern teams, no Western teams.
I think that's awesome for the sport because the SEC and Clemson got into the conversation for a little while, but for a long period of time, you had Ohio State, Nebraska, Michigan. Like, they'd have some good seasons. They'd be up there. Obviously Michigan won last year against Washington. Like, there's been some northern teams in there. USC, whether you consider them north, south, east, west, who knows?
I don't know.
West, I guess. Like, you've had a couple of teams outside of that SEC region do well. But, in the last, 15, 20 years, it's been dominated by the SEC. And I think with NIL coming into play, I do think it screws over smaller schools, but I think it allows the Big Ten and even the Big 12 to be a lot more competitive on that playing field. And I like to see that football, teams are being successful in the Midwest and in other regions that, don't get me wrong, the Midwest has a great tradition of football. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan State, great teams.
Wisconsin.
I'm not downplaying that at all.
Iowa, Nebraska. Right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm not downplaying that at all. But what I am saying is
in the NFL teams as well.
Right. What I am saying is the SEC has been running this sport for a while. Whether we like it or
the last 20 years.
As a Big Ten fan, I don't like it. But it has happened. You have to acknowledge that. And I'm interested to see with NIL and with Michigan and Ohio State being as good as they are, with Notre Dame presumably being back, someday Nebraska will figure it the heck out. I don't know when that day is going to come. But someday they'll figure it out. I think Wisconsin's been in kind of a lull, but they'll be back. Iowa's had some good seasons lately. There's a lot of really good Midwest teams in D1 and D2, obviously, as well. And, of course, in our division, you've got, Grand Valley and
Ferris.
Davenport even has been good.
Goodness. They kill us every time.
Right.
Every year.
So, there's a lot of really great football teams in the Midwest. And I think the Midwest has been overlooked because the Southeast.
And I've told them. I've told, no, I'm not joking. When players would come here and play against us, and when they're leaving, and I would tell them, join the FCS and leave us alone. And they're like, join D3 and leave us alone. I'm like, come on, man. Which, I'm like, we're going to smoke you in basketball.
Interestingly enough, a Ferris State player actually did sign for Michigan, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh, wow. He transferred to Michigan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
We got an offensive tackle from Ferris.
And there was a Ferris State player that is in the draft, NFL draft now.
I did see that, which is really cool. But again, I think it's really important to acknowledge the achievements of Midwest teams this year, especially given just the domination by the SEC. Speaking of beating the SEC, which is a topic that I always enjoy talking about, because screw the SEC.
Michigan beat Alabama.
Somehow my Wolverines beat Alabama.
Somehow your Wolverines played Alabama.
I feel
how did you get? How did that happen?
Okay, they knew that was going to be a marquee TV matchup, and they set us up for failure because I think they thought, and I did too, that Alabama was going to blow us the heck out.
Yeah.
Michigan doesn't have a functioning QB. Our top 2 running backs were in the draft. Our defensive line, all of that was in the draft. Will Johnson was in the draft. Nobody was playing. We had true freshmen at positions all across the field.
Somehow you won.
Against Jalen Milroe and a good chunk of the Alabama team because there were not as many. There were some Alabama opt-outs, don't get me wrong, but not nearly as many. And the defense played great, and then after that, we just kept playing defense while the offense just was a sitting duck.
Yeah. It was a defensive game.
Right. But it was a good sign to see us winning a game like that because it shows that our defense, even without our star players, is going to be dominant in coming years. And I think with a quarterback like Bryce Underwood, who, by the way, I think is going to be starting on day 1, I think it's going to be a very similar setup to Dylan Raiola, except for unlike Nebraska, I think Bryce Underwood is a better prospect by a long shot.
Yeah.
This guy, I think it's a little overkill, but this is the guy that's getting compared to Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa. Will he be that? I sure hope so as a Michigan fan, but I highly doubt it. I'm not trying to be delusional here. But I do think he has that kind of talent level and he's a step above or even 2 steps above what Dylan Raiola was when he stepped in. And Michigan's got a better coordinators, a better coach, like a better system. We got more NIL money. We got the best. I think starting next year, we will once again have the best offensive line in college football. For the last couple of years, I would argue we have had the best defensive line in college football and a very stout defense overall.
Yeah.
So you're putting him in a much better position to succeed than, Dylan Raiola and a Nebraska team that's been in the dumps since the 90s. So I think there's real potential he starts day one and turns Michigan around. And I say this, and people think I'm crazy.
You are.
Well, yeah.
I just had to take that. I interrupted you. What were you saying?
That's common sense. But
yes.
In this case, I think had Michigan had a QB of Bryce Underwood's caliber this year, you'd see us in Notre Dame's position right now. You can call me crazy.
But if your friends and former friends tell me that.
Oh, former friends.
Yeah.
Huh? Wow.
Apparently a classmate who I'm not going to mention her name. She's like, oh, yeah, I know Jack. No, I don't hang out as much anymore.
We'll talk up the air. Right?
I know.
I know you're just messing with me. But I think if we had a quarterback like Bryce Underwood this year, we would be in Notre Dame's position in the national championship right now. If we even had an average offense with our top 10 defense, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Michigan would have been in the playoff. Without a doubt, I think. Given that we beat Ohio State.
Do you guys think you'll get it next year?
A lower seed maybe, but I think
Michigan State will at least get a bowl game.
Bowl game, yeah. But I think next year in the Big Ten is going to be really interesting because Oregon's going to lose their quarterback and a lot of their playmakers.
Yep.
I still think Oregon will be the favorite for the Big Ten and not Ohio State because Ohio State loses their quarterback, most of their defense, a lot of their offensive line, I believe both their running backs, and a number of other players. They'll still be elite, like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're going to take a step back at all, because they won't. That'd be delusional of me to say. But I don't think the Buckeyes are going to be in another, like, a national championship next year. I think it's going to be one of those things where I don't think they'll take as far of a step back as Michigan did this year with the amount of talent that left. Like, I don't think they're going 7-5.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that they're going to take a step back. Penn State has proven time and time again that they will never, ever win a big game, ever.
Didn't they win a game?
Well, they beat Boise State, but again,
that's
Boise
a good
State,
team.
Boise State, I think, was fraudulent. And when
they're a good team. I think they're They're not a great team, but they're like a good team.
Penn State can win some, but I think when it comes to winning a conference or beating Michigan and Ohio State, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't think Penn State's got a shot there. So I think it's a 3-horse race between Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan again next year. I don't know Oregon's quarterback situation off the top of my head. I really should research this more, and I will after the show. Okay. But I do think Oregon will win the conference. I think us and Ohio State will jostle for second. I actually do think we'll beat Ohio State next year because I think Ohio State is going to, like I said, have a down year. And the fact that we beat them this year with the team that we had is telling.
Yeah.
So I do think we'll beat them next year, and I think all three of those teams will make the playoff, and honestly, I think Penn State will too. So I think you're going to have 4 Big Ten representatives.
Yeah.
If you really want to get into it, we can. I don't know if you want me to get really deep into what I think will happen next year. I think that's a later down the road topic, but it'll be a good year.
Before we get into that, for anyone who is just joining us here on WUPX 91.5 FM H1 Marquette, this is the Jack and Dom Radio Show. Just going through some stuff that happened all throughout break, as well as some stuff recently. Do you want to talk about Lions?
Yeah, let's quickly go over a review of them and MSU basketball.
Let's go.
I'm trying to delay the sad stuff and the frustrating stuff until the end of the show because
it's a tsunami.
Boy, oh boy, do I have some things to say.
Yes.
And we'll cover the Red Wings and Pistons too before I get to the Lions. MSU and Michigan basketball, I think, are top 3 teams in the Big right now. I actually thought Michigan State wouldn't have a great year because their roster I don't think is as talented as it's been in the past. They looked okay against NMU, but I wasn't like, oh my God, this team's a national championship contender. Like, wow.
Yeah.
They've been dominant so far. And, they've got the gauntlet of their schedule coming up. You've got to play Michigan and some of the other top teams. So I think you'll really see both from Michigan and Michigan State, who have played some close games against inferior competition, both of them have. Why are you grinning over there? You think you're going to blow us out or something?
No. Oh, no. You brought up Alabama, and I was like, wait, we're talking about basketball, not football. And I was like, oh, I was going to talk about Nick Saban.
No.
But Nick Saban's now on ESPN College Game Day and is like now, like when he first started, he was like a lot more like formal and like closed in. But now he's like opening up a little bit.
It's been fun to watch him, for sure.
With Pat McAfee as his like opposite.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think MSU and U of M will make the tournament be high seeds, and I think they've got a good chance to. I think Michigan
That's
State.
That's gonna be a good game.
I think Michigan State will get to the Elite Eight. I think Michigan will sit somewhere around the Sweet 16, maybe Elite Eight, depending on the draw.
Okay.
I think the real difference is the fact that Izzo's been there for 20-something years now. It might even be 30. I don't know. It's been so long, longer than I've been alive by a long shot.
Coaching for 30 years.
Yeah, so he's been there.
His first Big Ten win was against Bobby Knight.
Yeah, that was in like the what?
No, 90s. Yeah, 90s. Like early 90s.
Yeah. So, and obviously Michigan's got a first-year coach, so I think that'll make a difference. But we'll see. Michigan's got. You can talk about State in a minute. I just don't know much about State basketball.
I don't know much about it either, other than that they beat us.
Yeah. Michigan basketball, I have been tuning in a lot. What I've noticed is Michigan has 2 players over 7 feet in their starting lineup. They're both really, really good, especially Vlad Golden, our center, who's put up 30 points in 2 of his last 4 games. We've also got a bunch of guards and a couple forwards that can really shoot the 3 ball, which is important. We're very turnover prone, but when the turnovers are down, the team is good. But the thing that I've seen from Michigan that I don't see from a lot of good teams is the fact that our power forward and our center, who are both over 7 feet tall, can shoot the 3 ball.
Yeah.
So, like, you try to defend the rim against these guys, and then they pull up and make a 3, and you're like, what?
Yep.
They're also really good rebounders. Like, this Michigan team has athletes all across the board. Again, I don't know about State, but I do know that State is a red-hot shooting team.
Yep.
Like, they shoot really well. Fundamentally sound teams on both sides of this rivalry, and I think Michigan State basketball is going to be electric. Football rivalry hasn't really been there the last couple of years, obviously, with State and Michigan both kind of in a rebuilding phase. So I think this basketball game is going to be really hyped, and honestly, I'm really excited. See that happen. Oh, one side note that I just thought of that's not on our show sheet. Did you see Michigan State hockey this past week?
Yeah, Michigan State won.
Well, no, we split the series.
Oh, well, they won a game, yeah.
So, State hockey's number 1, Michigan hockey's number 10. I expect this to go up to like number 8, number 7.
We Northern only, when they played Michigan State, it was probably a blowout, but relatively speaking,
we had like 45 saves and only lost 2-0. I was impressed. But I think both Michigan and Michigan State are going to be top 5 teams by the end of the year, and it's going to be fun to watch. I don't really watch a lot of college hockey, but I do read a lot about it and do a lot of research on it. So it's exciting to see my Wolverines do well, and unfortunately the Spartans are too. But you win some, you lose some, right?
You want me to tell you something that this is football related, because I just saw the Bills Ravens score because playing against the Ravens, like Ravens Lions Super Bowl, would have scared me because Lamar Jackson scares me. I'm not even. Here's a secret for you all: Lamar Jackson scares me.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's too good. He's too fast. He's too good.
Right.
He's a Walmart Michael Vick.
That's a fun
but it's
one.
Still good.
He's better than Vick though.
Which Michael Vick? The 04 or the 04 Falcons, like 08 Michael Vick?
He's better than Vick in general.
Or is it the after he got out of jail
he's better
Michael
than
Vick?
Lamar is the best running QB of all time.
Michael Vick is better.
Statistically, he's the best, and I think
Michael Vick is better. I'm sorry.
I don't think so. We can have that debate another time if you want to really get into it. But Pistons, since the new year, are they're 7-3 in their last 10. They were game over 500. They're only 3 games back from a top 4 seed, and they're currently in the play-in tournament. After being like 3-30 bajillion at this point in the year last year, after my infamous "we're 2-1, it's going to be a great year" comment.
Oh, I still remember that.
Then we went
I should have captured that soundbite and put it on like a soundboard and like press it every time you bring up the Pistons.
Like we went 1-27 after that. But this year I could say with certainty we're 22-21. The team is much improved. We're actually looking to be a buyer at the deadline.
Cunningham's Cunningham is a superstar
at this point. Like we are seeing good things from this team for the first time in a long time.
Yes.
Right. We had Griffin. We went to the playoffs, but, we'd get crushed in the first round every year. Like, this is the first time where I think, like, with some smart trades and we're going after some players like Brandon Ingram and apparently Devin Booker. I don't know how we'll get him. That are really going to improve this team. Like, I'm excited. Red Wings made a coaching change over the break to try and jumpstart the team.
I heard something about that. How's that going?
It started really, really good, actually. We started like 5-1. We've dropped our last 2 games 5-1, 4-1, and lost 6-3 to the worst team in the league. So it's been a rough go of things the last couple games, but overall it's a pretty good improvement. Problem is we're sitting at the bottom of the standings, 46 points in 46 games. Not what you want to see. But I think given that we are only 6 points behind the final wild card spot, like there is a chance. And I'm really hoping we can sort of rebound a little bit because last season was bad, missed playoffs by a game, and then, this season just has been a letdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great segue, though, to speaking of letdowns. I'm not going to harp on it much because I think everybody in this city, well, not everybody, all sports fans in this city and in Detroit and in the surrounding regions, I think, saw the game. So I don't think I need to harp on that all that
Except
much.
for some of my friends on the basketball team who are big Packers fans who are like, go Washington. And I'm like,
well, okay, Green Bay.
Bleep you.
You've been in Cancun since last week. I hope it's nice. I hope it's warm down there.
Yeah, I hope so too. We'll see you down there. Considering how cold it is up here.
The Packers have done this before too, where you're the 1 seed with Aaron Rodgers and a much better team than this.
Didn't lose in the
2011, you had a legendarily good team, and you got blown to pieces by the Giants in the first round. So,
did they win the Super Bowl that year?
I believe so.
But
either way, I wouldn't
wouldn't
talk smack, Green Bay, because this has happened to you before, and you got exposed as frauds because you went like 0-7 or 1-7 against winning teams. So don't give me any.
And you're
flack.
5 of 6 against the Lions in the last 3 years.
Right, and I don't want to hear anything from you about Jared Goff, which I'm going to complain about him in a minute, but we'll get to that. Because you have Jordan Love, who's played even worse and gets paid more than Jared Goff. But anyway, or about the same, I think. Breaking news today that you and I both saw.
Literally minutes before the show started.
Ben Johnson hired by the Bears, which to me is really concerning. For 2 reasons. One, I don't like the fact that coaches can interview as their teams are preparing for playoff games.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
they do that in college too.
Right. I don't know if that influenced our game plan. I don't know if that's what made us lose. I don't know if our coaches were distracted by interviews. I don't think that's the case. But I do think that's problematic, and it's really unfortunate to see our star coordinator go to a rival team. And now that they have an actually competent head coach, I'm worried that the Bears are going to get their act together.
Yeah.
Which I don't like, because I like making fun of them being bad.
Yes.
And now I can't anymore.
It was all downhill since 1985, and we want to keep it that way.
Right, and supposedly he's going to go out and get a really good defensive coordinator. He's going to call his own offensive plays. I don't like that one bit. Now, on the bright side, their GM and team president can't get along. Their GM's record of drafting is pretty bad.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, there was drama involved.
There's a chance that they don't get their act together because the front office right now does not have its act together, and I think the Bears GM is one of the worst in the league. So there's a chance, but I am worried. And I'm worried that the Vikings are going to have J.J. McCarthy next year, and I'm worried that that's going to go very well because you get rid of Darnold, who can't win the big games, and you get somebody in J.J. McCarthy that proved he could. You know, his rookie year is going to be a growing pain, but come 1 to 2 years, that Vikings team is going to be scary. Jordan Love has been off, but that Packers team is still pretty good, pretty scary, very elite defense. I certainly fear for the Lions next couple years.
Well, we got good players. We got a good GM, so I'm not afraid of the draft picks.
I'm not afraid of the draft.
We're going to continue getting good draft picks. I think Dan Campbell. I almost said Dan Gamble again. I don't know. Dan Campbell.
Well, he did gamble and we lost.
And you know and all like the rest of the staff are going to continue to find good guys for the team, because it's not like there's like one good offensive coordinator ever.
I think personnel-wise,
there's people who want to come here. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think personnel-wise are going to be fine. I just don't like the idea of hiring within.
Yeah.
I would prefer somebody that has experience, whether that's an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator that's been recently let go, or an ex-head coach. I'd love Robert Saleh, but he's not going to come. Dennis Allen would be great. Like on the offensive side of the ball, if you want to get somebody that hasn't coordinated yet, but's an up-and-comer, I really like. Forget his first name. It's
do you know what
Greasy on the Niners.
Yeah. So the Detroit Lions, their official social media accounts, they shared a post that they made like many years ago when they initially hired.
Oh yes, I've seen this.
And so I go back there and look at the comments, and people
didn't everyone hate it? I think I did.
A lot of people hated it. And do you know who they wanted?
Who?
Saleh. Everyone wanted Saleh.
And I actually think that would have ended the same way that we had. Like, I think we would have been just as good. But I'm happy that we got Dan. Like,
the Jets is the Jets. So.
Right. I think Saleh would have been a great coach. But either way, I would prefer we hire someone externally that's either very widely regarded around the league or has already coordinated the defense or an offense. Like, hiring within is good.
Ben Johnson was, offensive guy, right?
Well, Ben Johnson was new to coordinating, but even before he got that coordinating job, like when he was a position coach and an analyst and all that stuff, like he was a little bit of a well-kept secret, but like a lot of people within the league, not necessarily fans, within the league, knew like that this guy was an up-and-comer and the real deal and like that stuff. Lions have some guys in their organization that might be that, but I think getting external hires, right, finding somebody that fits the culture, right, Aaron Glenn was a guy we got from New Orleans, right? Great external hire. I think that's the way to go. I don't know who we're going to get. I don't know what the plan is. I think more than likely we're going to promote from within. That's a major risk, but I trust Dan Campbell with that decision. So we will see, and we will see kind of how the Bears turn out. My question to you, and one that I've seen all across social media throughout the last couple days, and I think it's a valid question to ask, is: would you say this season is a success or a failure?
This was a success. 15-2, best franchise record for most wins, bunch of franchise records for quarterback, running back, touchdowns, kicking, all of that. Still had amazing defensive players before they got injured, like Aiden Hutchinson. Just blew the lights out before he broke his leg, it's kind of disappointing that he wasn't able to come back to play. It was fun. It was memorable. Family members who have been, paying attention to football a lot longer than I've been alive have been telling me, hey, you got a special team.
Right.
My dad, who is a Packers fan, big Packers fan, remembers 2010, remembers 1994, with Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl, as well as Brett Favre's Super Bowl, how big a deal that was. A lot of people, even on social media, who aren't Lions fans are like, yeah, you guys have a special team. Ride it out as long as you can. But what's nice is this isn't a fluke. I don't think this was like in the 90s where you had one exceptional player that put the team on his shoulders and had horrible upper management bogging him down and forced him to retire. We have really good upper management, so it's not like it's gonna train stops here. Like it keeps going. It's gonna be different. But we're not. I don't think we're going to be in the bottom of the barrel of the NFL anytime soon.
No.
So I think we'll be. I think to answer your next question, yes, we'll be back, and I think this season was a success.
I'm going to dodge a question and say success TBD.
Okay.
If next year, I think maybe even the year after, but I think next year especially, if you don't get to the NFC Championship game again. Like you miss it again for the third straight. Well, you lost it year one, but you missed it this year. If you miss it again next year, and I think this year and next year absolute failures because your Super Bowl window will be rapidly closing. You've got to pay everybody. Like, there's only so many good draft picks you can hit on.
Yeah.
Right? If you got every draft pick right, no one does. So I think it's a failure if we also fail next year. If we use this season as motivation and fuel to build next year, and next year is good, then I think it's a success. It's all about not necessarily how this season went, it's about how you use it. Right? Like, we can agree this season was not where we wanted it to be, but if you use it as a launch pad, a jumping off point, and you say, hey, free agents, we went 15-2, you could be the missing piece we need to get to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And you motivate those players, right? You see the heartbreak back-to-back years. Then yeah, I think it's a success if you lose it as a learning opportunity.
I still remember 2008.
A failure is only a failure if you don't use that failure and turn it into a success.
Yes.
So I don't think it's about the record this year. I don't think it's about losing to the Commanders. I think it's about how do you use this.
Yeah.
It happened, it's done. We're disappointed, but it doesn't have to be a failure if you use it to build in the next year. Will we be back, though?
Maybe. Probably. I wouldn't say maybe. I would say probably, but not guaranteed.
Back, yes. But I'm kind of at a point now where, unlike my parents and my grandparents, other family members and friends who had been drinking Lions Kool-Aid since the 80s, the 60s, whatever.
Yeah.
When I started watching football, I am no longer drinking the Lions Kool-Aid after this.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the Bobby Lane curse. I don't think it is.
It's broken. It's been confirmed broken.
But we haven't won anything yet. I think there's
we won the conference.
Right, we didn't. I think
we won the division twice.
I think Detroit is
banners. We got banners up there
right.
now.
I think we're going to remain good, but I don't know if this organization, even if it's run well, which it is right now, I don't know if we're ever going to win a Super Bowl ever.
I don't think it'll be next year.
I don't think we ever will, though. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I just don't think this team is going to be able to.
You need therapy.
Do I? Or am I just real?
I'm talking about, like, in general, you see the glass half empty way too much.
But there's nothing wrong with this outlook on the Lions because your parents and my parents and others have been drinking the Kool-Aid since the 80s.
My girlfriend is a social worker. She can hook up with you with someone and probably give you a good deal. I think if your insurance covers it, then I think it works out. But
you are hilarious. But
I am hilarious. And before we get off, because I was having a conversation with the basketball coach Matt about the Michigan Tech, Green Bay game. I should have brought this up earlier when we were talking about it, but I think this is hilarious. Very, very, very hilarious.
This, by the way, and it was all over ESPN.
Yeah, it was because, they're saying, it's, they said nobody you, whatever. But I was like, I was telling Matt, I'm like, he has no coaching experience and he gets a D1 job.
Right.
It's like me taking your job. It makes absolutely no sense. Right. and then he asks me, do you think you do a better job than him? And I would say no. But what I should have said was, guess what job I legitimately think I would do better in. And he get
the football team. But
the offensive coordinator, I'm serious. I'm telling everyone, I'm telling you, Matt, if you're listening, I'm serious. I would do better. I think I could do better as an offensive coordinator for a football team. I would already have plans down. Change in the playbook to a West Coast plus RPO offense,
right? Based
off of shorter passes, things I formation, shotgun. Modern
There's only
stuff.
So much you can do in college.
No more triple option.
Right. I mean, you can only do so much with the D2 offense, but I think when you're losing
high percentage plays,
right? When you're losing to a team 78-0 or 48-0 or all those other shutouts and blowouts, and I think you could. It's honestly, and we talked about this forever for last year, so we'll talk about this again come on next year if we're both still doing this. You can't really get worse. You really can't. You're like a bottom 5 offense in all of college football. Can I touch on a couple more lines?
Yeah, one more.
Got a few more minutes. So, one other comment I've seen online, and I agree with it to some degree, is criticism of Jared Goff. He's disappeared, I think, this year. Well, at least in this big game. And if you know about his Rams history, you'll know that especially in the Super Bowl, he disappeared when it mattered most.
Yeah.
Also, I think it was a really stupid idea to put the game in his hands because Jahmyr Gibbs was having himself a day and you didn't put the ball back in his hands at all.
Sonic speed.
So you honestly you kind of set Goff up for failure.
Yeah.
But I made the joke to you because I put it on the show sheet. If you know, Jared Goff has been compared to Ryan Gosling in appearance and in personality before.
Other people have been comparing him to that. Not he has not been doing it. Other people have been
he's kind of played into it a little bit.
Yes. And especially on Halloween.
And I think he looks the part. But
yes.
If you know I'm Just Ken from the Barbie movie that Ryan Gosling was in.
I'm Just Ken.
Right. I kind of feel, it'd be applicable here too, and I'm just Jared, right? And I'm not going to sing for you because I don't want to, but, anywhere else he'd be a 10, right? On the Rams, who was a pretty good quarterback, they said, you're not good enough. Metaphorically, you're not a 10.
Yeah.
Now in Detroit, people are questioning him, right? I think some of the criticism is warranted.
When everyone cheers Jared Goff in non-Lions game because one guy has a Jared Goff jersey.
Right.
No, he this is his home.
But I think it's interesting how fast people turn.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated with Jared. I certainly think it's unacceptable how he refuses to throw the ball away or move his feet when he's under any kind of pressure.
Yeah.
Like he gets touched, he folds like a folding chair. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
And, some of the stupid turnovers have been unacceptable.
Oh.
I don't think he should have been put back in the game. I'm guessing, I don't know how he passed concussion protocol on that play, which should have been a penalty, by the way, where on that interception return, they slammed him to the ground.
Was that a helmet-to-helmet hit?
Oh, yeah. He shouldn't have been back in that game, and I think part of the reason why he looked so off later in the game was because I truly think he had a minor concussion.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that the NFL concussion team, did their job and determined it wasn't severe enough, whatever. But one, there's a high incentive because it's a playoff game to get him back in the game. But two, it's not always easy to tell when someone's got a concussion, especially if it's minor enough where, not all the signs and symptoms are there. So I think he had a concussion. I think that warranted some of his really poor decision-making because other than the Houston game with the 5 interceptions, the one thing I give Goff credit for, so sometimes overthrow, sometimes underthrow, he'll miss guys.
Mm-hmm.
But he almost always makes the right read. And in this game, he made some reads that I've never seen him read that badly. Like, J-Mo was wide open in the end zone for a good 5 seconds, and he just didn't see him and then threw it and it got picked off, right? You had the pick 6, which was just an awful throw. I think he threw a third one that was also really bad. He just wasn't himself. And I don't understand why the coaching staff wouldn't be able to see that, rely more on the run. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater hasn't played football in a hot minute, but if you're concerned that your quarterback, maybe they didn't think he had a concussion, and maybe I'm crazy, but I'm a little concerned for Jared, and I hope, they check him out, they make sure he doesn't have a concussion, they get him back on track, all that stuff. And I think him and this team will come back next year with fire, and I think in the regular season it's going to be tough. They've got a gauntlet schedule, but I think they are going to be extra motivated in the playoffs. And I think if you can avoid the Eagles, which I think will presumably be the 1 seed, and you can win the division again, I think next year could be great. Okay. We'll see. Disappointing week, but I expect that Detroit sports fans will be happier come this time next year. At least I hope. There's your optimism that you asked for.
All right. Well, we might not have a show next week regarding schedules and stuff because a lot of stuff's going on. But there is one last thing I forgot to mention. I always do in the beginning of the show, just as a disclaimer. The opinions said on this show do not represent the opinions of this radio station or the university. I just want to mention that, put that on the record. But also, you can now get this show where you can find podcasts, whether it be on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Just look up the Jack and Dom Radio Show. And we might see you next week. We might not. And I'm going to try to get us some social media pages set up so that we can get people get the community involved. Because I bet the guy who was calling us had like a good like suggestion to bring up and talk about. So we're gonna try to get that set up so that we don't have this problem again. But anyway, this is the Jack and Dom Radio Show. We will see you guys next week here on WPX 91.5 FM H2M Marquette.